Hey KT, did you do what you said you would and keep a better track of all the games you played this year? Yes I did. I made a list so I wouldn't need to spend all my time hunting down Twitch data again. And interestingly enough, despite streaming more than I ever had in previous years, I didn't actually play as many games. I mostly focused on larger scale RPGs and some replays. Oh, and yeah, the elephant in the room, Remedy games. 2024 was basically the year KT finally hunkered down and played quite a lot of Remedy Entertainment's library. Alan Wake, Control, Quantum Break. So sadly, yeah, nearly half of this list is just gonna be Remedy games. I enjoyed my playthroughs with them and my interactions with the community, but since I've had the time to cool in the latter half of the year, it'll be nice to actually share more neutral opinions on the titles. For a small bit of context, I will be covering games that I played in general, not games that were only released in 2024. So yeah, you'll see some weird ones on here. Let's just get into the honorable mentions, which include Sable and Alan Wake: American Nightmare. Sable, released in 2021, is a smaller indie title heralded for its art direction and narrative style. I did enjoy my time with the game, ultimately doing a lot of the story for the deeper lore bits and coming to the conclusion with its chosen mask. I won't say what that was, because honestly, I do still want people to play this game. My biggest reason for not making it a numbered entry is, unfortunately, as I stated in my quick review, the performance issues really did make enjoying the game's atmosphere and sprawling landscapes frustrating. The constant stuttering when traveling around would often ruin any joy I may have felt when entering a new area. Is it a good game? Of course. Is it worth your time? Potentially no. Then we have American Nightmare, released in 2012. The irony of this not being on the list comes from the fact that it is probably my favorite Alan Wake game, but due to it being very much one of those standalone expansion games, like Old Blood or Death of the Outsider, I honestly can't have it as a numbered rank because of the rest of the games I played this year. Is it fun? Oh yes, the weapon system and overall cyclical narrative is highly enjoyable. This game has a great story, a lot of its villain beats being present through diegetic narrative points. Also, Mr. Scratch is the better Scratch. Fight me. But is it worth your time? If you're a Remedy fan, yes. My biggest gripe with American Nightmare is that it basically feels like a multiplayer game without the multiplayer. Something a friend of mine and I complain about a lot, cause hey, we both like the game, and yeah, it'd be really fun to play it together. I also just didn't want half of my numbers to be Remedy games. Alrighty, onto the main list, and oh boy, just by looking at it, some of these might make sense, some of these might cause some ire, but hey, that's why I'm here. To unintentionally have an opinion not shared by the common populi. Coming in at number 10, Alone in the Dark Inferno. KT, what on God's green earth is this? Why are you putting a janky PS3 game over an indie classic and your favorite Alan Wake title? Because Inferno is a mess of broken nonsense and I love every minute of it? Well, mostly. Alone in the Dark Inferno was released in 2008 and was the original swan song for the series until its revival in 2024. The main reason I played it, in the PS3 version, Edward Carnby is played by James McCaffrey, yes, the Max Payne man, and as I like to know him as Zachariah Trench, the saddest man in all the Remedyverse. Inferno is, on the surface, a very cut-and-dry classic-era survival horror. You've got your limited resources, your janky camera, and combat controls, but what it had over others in the genre was just any lack of subtlety or nuance. Inferno spends most of its time just throwing massive Uncharted-esque landscape destruction at you in extremely loud combat sections. Then, the most boring and mundane open-world exploration with Dryden somehow worse and better than GTA 4? I don't know, man. Edward just spends most of his time bumbling around and pretending to know what he's doing while some lady helps him. And obviously they end up falling for one another, cause why not? It's an early 2000s game. The game also has two endings where both make no sense whatsoever, and there was never actually a planned sequel, so the obvious bait was, well, pointless. But yes, I love this game a lot. The over-the-top nature of its level design meant that each new section was both baffling and hilarious, and once I did figure out the combat, most enemies were fairly easy to deal with. Also, the game literally has the ability to skip certain sections if you deem them too hard, which I did a few times. Only downside, it also skipped cutscenes, so at one point I had this random mummy guy with me in my Land Rover, and we were trying to flee the destruction of the world whilst on a timer. But yeah, Inferno is something. Do I recommend it? Absolutely not. Just go watch a Let's Play or something. Okay, that was a lot. Let's move on to the next one. Number 9, Quantum Break. I think my main regret with Quantum Break is I only played it once and didn't actually explore more of the game like I should have. Released in 2016, the game's primary mechanic is that depending on how you played, you got to choose certain endings for each chapter that would affect the game. Each one of these endings being presented as a 20 to 30 minute long live action episode. The game boasts such massive talents as Sean Ashmore, Aidan Gillen, Lance Reddick, Dominic Monaghan, and if you played Control, you'll recognize Courtney Hope. The game's primary plot is that Jack Joyce has to figure out all this timey-wimey stuff caused by Paul Serene and his brother William. It all culminates in trying to avoid the end of reality. It's a fairly cut and dry science fiction time travel plot, and honestly, I hardly remembered any of it other than a few bits. When I tried to play the PC version, the inserted live action videos wouldn't play, so I basically would get to a new section of gameplay and have no context to what was actually going on. But I did eventually watch them all on YouTube. Mechanically, Quantum Break is very much this game walked so Control could run. The powers and third-person action are fun, but the platforming and time sections are horrendous. There would be several points where I just didn't understand what ability to use in a section and would end up dying to some really odd hit detection and have to start over from the very beginning of a level. The checkpoints were not great. The one downside to this game is it's considered to be an odd duck of the Remedyverse. Quantum Break sort of exists as a parallel where things like Max Payne and Alan Wake are tangible media in their universe. Due to this, a lot see it as not being officially a part of the connected canon, though with recent introductions in Alan Wake 2, we're starting to see pieces of it fit into place. Whether or not this is true or a good thing is a debate for another time. I really don't have much else to say, but honestly, I think the only reason this game is a notch higher than Inferno is because it's actually playable for the most part. Do I recommend Quantum Break? If you're a Remedy fan, yes. If you really don't care about story and don't want to deal with all the convoluted time stuff, maybe not. Let's move on to number 8, Alan Wake. Specifically the remaster, because I've never played the original. So as a whole, I like Remedy games, but I have a funny relationship with the Sad Man simulator. Alan Wake, released in 2010, the remaster in 2021, is Remedy's first departure from the Max Payne series. It blatantly portrays itself as a Twin Peaks Stephen King-esque experience, where the writer Alan Wake, played by Ika Villa and Matthew Peretta, visits a small town and then deals with spooky stuff. The game is very much trying to be in the same genre as Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Alone in the Dark, and even the Clock Tower series at times. But where those games have a good balance of horror and suspense, Alan Wake does not. Though the game has the bones of a survival horror, it plays more like a third-person shooter where you have the worst jump ever and are forced to fight bridges and train cars. With how I'm wording it, it sounds like a bad thing, but really, it's not. I honestly enjoy Alan Wake more than its sequel, Alan Wake 2, not American Nightmare. The combat feels so much more rewarding, and your ability to just leg it down cliffs and heck even get in cars and run over enemies is extremely fun. Yeah, this game has driving in it. Much like Inferno, you spend a lot of time in these massive sections that are dotted with small bits of lore and collectibles. This game doesn't really care about being boxed into a genre. It allows itself to be a goofy TV show of an experience, and once you get to the end, it feels rewarding enough. Can I say the same for the DLC? No. The Signal and the writer literally feel like cut content that adds nothing to the game other than some vague lore to a character the entirety of the community just believes isn't real. You're real to me, poet. Should you play this game? Go for it. It's a good time once you get past the clunky combat. Okay, let's just move on to number 7. Disco Elysium. Ah yes, Disco, my favorite sad man game. Released in 2019, the game follows two police officers, Ken Kitsuragi and Harry Dubois, or whatever his name is, trying to solve a murder. The game is very much a love letter to choose-your-own-adventure novels and homebrew D&D campaign. Everything is done through dialogue trees and skill checks that can be affected by your current kappa types, as well as other things. There's a lot going on in Disco Elysium mechanically, and I could be here all day talking about them. I really don't want to soil the narrative or any of those said mechanics because so much of what occurs in the game is directly related to how you choose to set up your playstyle. Choose to be sad boring cop, get sad boring cop gameplay. Choose to be a communist, you get a lot of really interesting dialogue options that are primarily focused on uplifting your comrades. Due to Harry's drunken stupor and his inability to remember who he is, it gives the player the option to just go wild and basically turn him into anything under the sun. I suppose my biggest downside and why this game didn't get a higher on the list is because of this very thing. Potentially. The game game stretches over about 2 weeks worth of time and you can play and solve the murder or not. I ended up making a lot of critical checks early and moved the investigation on so quickly that fairly important characters really didn't have much to do. And one of the more key moments, the stuff in the square, seemed to just happen out of nowhere, and by the time I got to the ending scenario, it all just felt empty and rushed. And though this could have been a design choice on the developers, I would really like to be more inclined to believe that it was more so because of how I end up playing the game. I chose a fairly cut and dry set of skills and combat types so just to be able to play the game as cleanly as possible. I basically didn't want to hurt or upset anyone and ended up getting scolded for it anyway. Thanks, Kim. Does this dampen my appreciation of Disco Elysium? Of course not. The game is very fun, but I can't really recommend it if you aren't a fan of text-based adventures. The style and characters might be appealing, but if you don't want to sit in dialogue trees for literal hours, you're not gonna have a fun time. I had a lot more to say on Disco Elysium than I thought. Let's just get on to number 6. Alan Wake 2. This game is on borrowed time for me, but yeah, I'll let you be above your predecessor. So the longer I think about Alan Wake 2, the more I've come to realize that I only enjoy it when I play as Saga. For the sequel, released in 2023, Remedy decided to have the narrative split between two characters, that being Alan Wake and a new addition, FBI agent Saga Anderson. Alan spends his time in the dark place while Saga is in the real world trying to solve a mystery around a cult and some murders. So why do I enjoy Saga's side more? Well, without going into too many story spoilers, Saga and her partner, Alex Casey, are fantastic additions to the Alan Wake cast, as are many of the side characters she runs into. The Koskela brothers, the return of Rose Marigold, Tor, Odin, Tim Breaker, and many of the residents of the Valhalla retirement home. Whereas Alan has the filmmaker. Yeah, this guy who I still don't even understand who or what he is. We're only given the character of he's a funky guy and that's about it. Oh, and Dor is cool, but I'm extremely annoyed at how mysterious he is. The Alan sections are lacking any real gameplay and are mostly just you going around from room to room collecting information, then filling out a board to change said locations. Yes, I know Alan is a writer, and creative minds affect the dark place. That's not why I'm upset with it. I love the overall engineering of it. Mechanically, this game is amazing, but I often found myself just running around confused because the game didn't bother to give me any kind of direction and opted to use moon logic instead. I had similar issues with Saga from time to time when I'd be putting together clues for cases, but it wasn't nearly as difficult to figure out, unless the whole UI for the location decided to break and I had to restart over 10 minutes of progress. This happened a lot, unfortunately. The amount of bugs I ran into while playing Alan Wake 2 was very noticeable and nowhere near Bethesda levels of features. This mostly happened with the UI, but I would also have many enemy spawns break, reload animations refuse to work, so my firearm wouldn't function properly. It was pretty bad. Overall, yes, narratively, I like most of the game, save a lot of Alan's meandering. Visually, the game is absolutely stunning from start to finish. Every character model, shader, texture, fantastic. Combat, I loved how arcadey Alan Wake could get, same with American Nightmare, so the hard cut to clunky survival horror really did make wanting to play this game difficult, especially during the boss fights. And in most Remedy fashion, the DLC is fine, but honestly pretty lacking in terms of anything flavorful. The Lake House was fine, if not a bit short. The Night's Ring DLC really wasn't doing it for me. I enjoyed the second and third episode, but yeah, let's just carry on to number 5, Death Stranding. Why did it take me so long to play this game despite how much of a fan of Kojima I am? Same reason it takes me forever to play just about any game, time and initiative. But yeah, in 2024, I finally managed to sit down and play Death Stranding from start to finish. I ended up getting the PS5 upgrade because I actually pre-ordered the game back in 2019, so I got to play it with the shiny graphics and no Monster Energy. I honestly wouldn't even know how to spoil the narrative of Death Stranding because, like most Kojima games, the story isn't laid out in a way to where you could easily understand on your first playthrough. But the primary plot is that Sam, Norman Reedus, is a mailman who has to reconnect America. That's the plot. Okay, there is a bit more to it, but I'm not the one who can explain it to you. Honestly, when it comes to Kojima games, I more so play them for the small character moments and vibes, and Death Stranding is certainly a vibe. Never in my life has a game humbled me so brutally than this one. The fact that I can just be casually running across the field to deliver some pizza, then suddenly the tiniest pebble catches my toe and I topple into a river and lose all my progress is pretty debilitating. Or if I accidentally kill someone because I forget about void outs and have to spend the next hour getting the body to the incinerator to dispose of it. Death Stranding is very much about trial and error. Even in its tutorial area, the first zone doesn't teach you everything, and I was around 30 plus hours in and still getting gameplay tips. This all sounds negative, but this is honestly what one expects when playing something created by Kojima. He loves his obtuse narratives and odd mechanics. I, like most people, were extremely hyped when this game got announced. We all had no idea what it was about, but we were going to play it regardless. It just took me a heck of a lot longer than most, and I'm glad I did take my time with it. I never got spoiled on the lore or even the mechanics, so when I finally did get around to it, it was an extremely fun time. I am in the process of replaying it, but unfortunately that had to take a back seat to other projects. But should you play it? Yes. I highly recommend this game to anyone who wants a different open world experience to just the standard action adventure. But it does have a weird learning curve, so please be patient and just take your time. We're getting down to the wire. On to number 4, Final Fantasy Rebirth. Oh look, a game that actually came out this year that I ended up playing, and it's extremely difficult not to spoil why I didn't put it in my top 3. All I'm gonna say is, poof, that ending. So I'm not even a big fan of Final Fantasy VII, but as a professional hater, I generally consume the media, the things that I like to pass judgment on, and the 7 series is no different. KT, what do you mean series? Oh yeah, Final Fantasy VII is basically its own series of games. There's a lot of them, as well as other kinds of expanded media, and unfortunately, a lot of those bits are canon. But I'm not gonna go into all that because I really don't want to. The 7 rabbit hole is deeper than most and will be relegated to a big video series eventually. Oh, and yeah, Rebirth is a sequel to Remake, which came out who knows how long ago. Honestly, it feels like ages at this point. It's not even feasible to talk about where this game is narratively unless you've either played the original or Remake, so yeah, I'm not gonna. I suppose it's just easier to talk about it mechanically. It's the same affair we got in Remake, except the battle system is more polished and caters to open world exploration than the hallways of its predecessor. It is a run-of-the-mill action RPG, but extremely fun and honestly not that repetitive. The side missions and exploration are enjoyable, but I did eventually hit that I really want to just end the game wall and proceeded to do so. It took me about 9 hours, I cried, got horribly confused, then just decided to never touch it again. It's really hard to sort of sell people on the idea of Rebirth if you've never played the remake or even Final Fantasy in general. And even if you have, it really is just another open-world RPG that attempts to sell you with nostalgia. But the game is extremely fun, and I do highly recommend it. Just be warned, it will take you a while. And here we are, the top 3. I had a hard time figuring out which was going to go where, but I think I've finally come up with a definitive answer. So let's just dive into number 3, Control. KT, I thought this was like the perfect game for you. It has interesting lore, compelling characters, fun mechanics, fantastic exploration. It does have all of that, but it doesn't hold up in certain places like I would want it to. Control, released in 2019, was Remedy essentially dipping their toes into the open world genre. Yes, Control is an open world game. Don't even try to fight me. It caters exploration over narrow narrative, has several collectibles and abilities that give you advantages when exploring, and you only see about 60% of the actual game if you only do the main plot. Yes, you're inside a massive building, but there are numerous shortcuts and paths that lead to several different sections of the map. There are fully developed characters and whole missions you can just miss if you literally don't go down a hole in this game. It's ridiculous. Control is open world. Okay, let's just carry on. So what is even my gripe with Control? Well, it's the sad fact that a lot of what makes it interesting gets essentially turned into Alan Wake side lore. The unfortunate folding of the Remedyverse has made a lot of what makes the FBC as well as Jessie herself interesting has been diminished by the weird additions created in Alan Wake 2. Also, the DLC, once again, just feels like cutting room floor fodder re-added to the main narrative. AWE is literally an Alan Wake 2 teaser and ties up some stuff for an Alan Wake. It also has the single most worst boss in the whole game and makes the DLC highly unenjoyable. And the Foundation is just 2 hours of introducing us to a bunch of nothing, while Jessie and Emily proceed to crap on everything the FBC was up until that point. The Foundation committed the cardinal sin of taking 2 characters I really liked and making them insufferable. Control is a fantastic game when you see it as its own entity. The narrative character environments are fantastic and well built. Heck, my favorite Remedy character is Zachariah Trench because of how amazing a job James and the writers did to bring his character to life. The mysteries of the FBC are fantastic and extremely well laid out. Jesse is one of my favorite protagonists in a long time, and I love all of the side characters. Dr. Darling, Emily, Ati, Langston, heck, I even like Underhill, she's sassy. This rant has turned into less of why this is a number 1 and more so my actual gripes with the game. I love Controller a lot, I really do, but I fear for its future in terms of its autonomy. Let's just move on. Okay, I know I said I had a hard time when it came to the top 3, but it was really honestly just between 1 and 2. I played a lot of great games this year, and 2 of them I'd consider perfect. So yeah, I'm gonna spoil those. It was Returnal and Astro Bot. Even as I'm writing this script, I still don't know which is which. These 2 games, ironically enough, are my intros into 2 genres I know little about. My time with roguelikes is very limited, and I have a massive dislike of 3D mascot platformers. So I'm just gonna do something that's a little different from a top 10 list. Well, maybe, I don't know. Let's just see why I like them and maybe decide at the end which is my top rated game of 2024. I think I'll start with Returnal first because it was the first game I played this year and the most. I played it for nearly 70 hours and excusing a few odds and ends, I essentially 100%ed the game. I got all the endings, unlocked every weapon, and completed the DLC. Returnal, released in 2021, is a space survival roguelike that takes our protagonist Celine to a highly volatile world to find something called the White Shadow. The narrative is fairly in-depth, but it's not really told in a way that can be explained easily. Each time you make a run, you come across recordings and bits of alien lore that give you insight, and obviously after you defeat bosses. The game has 7 biomes and 6 primary bosses in total, yes, I'm including the DLC. I think what I do genuinely love the most about Returnal is that I felt dying really didn't feel undeserved. I would get upset at times, sometimes seeds would be pretty unforgiving, but I got to a point where anytime I died, I just understood that that run wasn't for me and carried on. I suppose Returnal is a bit more forgiving, since it gives you a carried over resource that allows you to unlock consumables and relics that you may have missed on normal play, and it also gives you upgrades that make traversing easier as you play. But even then, I'd still get my hide handed to me if I wasn't careful, and yeah, I'm cool with that. I guess I would like to take a minute to gloat, because I really didn't have a difficult time with this game, and it's still considered to be one of the hardest out there. I don't know, I just don't see Returnal as hard. As much as I don't see Control as hard, a game people consider a Souls-like. I really don't believe I'm good at games. I struggle with most on a good day, so yeah, I think I'll take the win with Returnal. If it's hard and I'm good at it, awesome. I finally got good at a game that isn't an RPG or some baby game. I love Returnal. I could go on for hours about it, and I will one day. It is definitely on the list of bigger videos, so yeah, we'll see that in about 20 years. Because it takes me ages to do scripted content. On to Astro Bot. You know KT really doesn't like platformers. You know what they don't like even more than that? 3D mascot platformers. I'm talking about your Jacks, your Ratchets, your Nathan Drakes, heck, even some of your Marios, except Odyssey. I really liked Odyssey. So why in the ever-loving Emperor of Terra do I like Astro Bot? I don't know, it got me. The little lads suckered me in with their little robot self and all their little funky friends. I don't even know how to describe why this game is so perfect to me. I'm still trying to come up with reasons as I write this. Astro Bot and its predecessor are some of the only games I have platinum trophies with. The other is Alan Wake 2, but that one honestly isn't that hard to get. I got all the little fellas, even the speedrun fellas, and had a blast doing it. This game is such a love letter to Sony's library. They even got little Killzone fellas. I was so disappointed there was no Radic Bot, but oh well, I drew him, so here's what he may have looked like. And even a Stall Bot, cause of course I drew him. Hey, Asobi, please add them in. And maybe like a 7 and Echo Bot, cause they'd be so cute. So I had an entire little section of this video dedicated to how disappointed I was that I could not get Celine Bot in this game despite the fact that she is in the other game, but literally I found out that if you unlock her in the other game, you get her in this game, so yeah. That point is completely invalid, because now I have Celine Bot. Okay, maybe I should talk about the actual game, because I'm not really painting a good picture. I obviously don't have experience with the genre, so I don't know where Astro Bot potentially fails or succeeds as a 3D platformer. I absolutely loved the level-based mechanics and friends you could get, the dog, chicken, the frog hands. I especially loved the mouse power-up as well, and the sponge. All the boss fights were challenging yet rewarding, especially since each one unlocked a new world dedicated to a Sony IP. The music and sound design is also fantastic. I had the OST on loop for weeks because each piece was a bop. I even still sing the main theme when I'm bored. I bought Astro Bot. I am Astro Bot. Astro Bot. But the interesting thing is, you can actually play this game without proper audio. All of the primary sound effects come out of the controller speaker. And oh man, the feedback. Everything you interacted with felt real and unique. The clanking of the metal, the small twirls on the ice, every hit had an amazing impact with the rumble. I think what honestly sets Astro Bot and Returnal apart are the experiences of them. Well, duh, yeah, obviously. But that's the biggest reason I have such a hard time picking one over the other. They're vastly different games that gave me a 10 out of 10 experience. Returnal was an amazing adventure trial and error through an extremely intriguing narrative and environment, and Astro Bot was a fantastic time through Sony's history while also introducing us to a potentially new and long-standing mascot. So as of recording this video, the 2024 Game Awards happened, and wouldn't you know it, Astro Bot won. I was honestly just as surprised as everyone else. I know award shows are skewed and all that guff, but honestly seeing the hard work Asobi put into this project and see it be rewarded not only by the Game Awards but the community as a whole gave me so much hope for the future of gaming. To see the essential essence of gaming, a cute little character jumping around and having an adventure, win over so many heavy games was inspiring. My love to the other nominees, especially Balatro, congrats to that freaking game for its rewards and success. I haven't played it yet, but oh man, it looks amazing. I also sat down the morning of finalizing the script to even play the festive wintertime level they dropped for Astro Bot, and again, it was amazing. Adding so many new bots, 4 new outfits, and color schemes for the controller. I hope to see even more of this game in the new year, and am willing to pay for new levels, puzzles, and in more little friends. I had a friend ask me if this would skew my potential for the #1 pick, and yeah, it did. I love Returnal so much, so much, but Astro Bot has won my heart over in more ways than I can think of right now. I want both IPs to prosper equally as well as both studios. So yes, for my games of 2024, number 2 will go to Returnal, and the #1 spot, Astro Bot. Thank you all so much for a great year of gaining and growth on this channel, as well as my Twitch. I hope I can keep playing more amazing games and have an even harder list to create for 2025. And hey, if you made it this far, why not tell me your top 10 of 2024, or what your favorite game is in general? Thank you all for watching.